to begin about my feeling, personally, I feel numb. There's no words that I could express how I feel. But my thinking and my thoughts are very much with the people who are going through this ordeal, and who are witnessing the 20 years worth of everything that they had worked for, everything that they achieved, are evaporating before their eyes, and there is nobody who could help them to keep what they've earned, and that they're concerned about the future that is waiting for them.
Do you think the future is going to be like for the people of Afghanistan now?
I think that we don't know. One thing that we are not actually focused on at the moment on the Taliban is that we're mainly focused on the political shenanigans that's happening in Kabul and Doha and Islamabad and elsewhere, and the diplomatic efforts that are being pushed to make sure that the capital city doesn't descend into chaos and bloodshed. We're expecting Taliban leadership to go to Kabul. There'll be apparently there's going to be a transition government before before the whole system, the whole state is transferred over to the Taliban. But one thing we have to take note is, it is not the political leaders of the Taliban who've been doing the fighting. It is their fighters and the commanders on the ground who are more vicious, who are known for their ferocity, so for their savagery and cold-heartedness. It's they who have been running the show. It's they who have been fighting, and they will not be giving power away. They are the power holders in the Taliban, not the mullahs that you see on your TV. So it will be they who rule. It is they who believe in the heart, in the very barbaric ideology. It is, they're not only savage, cold-hearted killers, but they're also drug lords in their own right. So we're seeing. What we have to look for is not how the power transition, which is now inevitable, but also have to look at how the Taliban are being managed. So, the commanders, and we have to see how they're going to behave, not the political leaders at the top.
I wonder how much of the responsibility we can place on the very abrupt exit by the US forces, which was then obviously followed by the UK. I wonder how you sort of think Biden has handled the US withdrawing from Afghanistan, and whether the sort of Western intervention coming to an end so abruptly, without, it would appear, an effective sort of checking of the military and government's ability to manage a Taliban insurgent. What do you think about that?
I think that the whole affair, has been nothing but a foolhardy from the American perspective. They naively believed in everything that the Taliban told them during their talks. They bought everything that the Taliban promised, but the Taliban never delivered on any promises that they signed for. There have been a push for a distinction between the Taliban and other terrorist entities within Afghanistan. There is none. You cannot separate Al Qaeda, the Taliban, and other terrorist entities within that geographical area. And what we also have had is the undoing of everything in Afghanistan was the beginning of America giving legitimacy to the Taliban's fight by giving them diplomatic platform, by legitimizing their power, by giving them quasi-state treatment, by recognizing them, and in the end, what we're now seeing is, Biden administration not only was reckless, but it was what the Americans did was a betrayal of everything that the America and the West stood for. This will have implications not for the Afghan people. They will have to go through, they will go through their ordeals. I've been talking to friends, relatives, people in Afghanistan who are worried about, what's going to be, what's going to happen to them. And I can just give you an example within our family. I know it's not about my family. It's about, it's just an example of how Afghanistan changed over the past 20 years. Within my family, immediate family, all girls, all female cousins of mine were managed to go to school. But many of them went to university. Many of them are graduated. They're doctors. They're nurses. They're artists. But I dread for the next generations that's going to come after them. What will be their future like? And so this betrayal makes it so painful. Not only that the Afghans will have to go through this, but we in the West, we in the West will feel the responsibility and the consequences of what has been done in Afghanistan. It is not just the lives of the Afghans which are on the line. It is the credibility and trustworthiness of the West, and also we have, the West have allies all across the world who are being threatened by different adversaries. They'll have to look again and think, can we count on America as a superpower? Can we count on the West to come to our rescue when we are being pushed around by our adversaries? So there are two things going on at the same time. Both will have heavy consequences for the Afghans and for the people of for America and the West.
You raised the important point about the female relatives, your sisters and your cousins out there. What's the future looking like for the women of Afghanistan? I mean, I've read reports that life will become very difficult for women who are divorced or widows, don't have fathers or brothers. They'll have to be escorted with a male member of the family if they want to leave the house, and not to forget that they will be expected to cover up as well. What will the future look like for the women of Afghanistan?
I think, Afghanistan is a very traditional society. Women have been covering themselves up for, throughout its, Islamic history. But that is the list of the Afghan women's worries. They'll be losing many more fundamental rights. The thing to note about the Taliban don't just see women as human beings. They look at women as objects that can be used at will. They're looking at women as something that is there for men to be used. They have a sense of ownership, the complete ownership of the body, the mind, everything that a womanhood, entail. The Taliban believe that ownership. So it is within their prerogative what they want to do with women, and they don't recognize any basic right for women. I worry. And I just saw that there's a picture I put on my Twitter feed of a man mopping over or trying to paint over a picture of a billboard of woman in Kabul, which had a woman had not had her face covered, trying to cover them up. So we can see the mindset that's actually gripping the Afghan capital and elsewhere. But unfortunately, I've not been able to to speak to cousins and relatives in my birthplace, which fell last night. I'm in constant touch with friends who female friends who are entrepreneurs, who are teachers, who are artists, who are journalists. They're deeply worried about what tomorrow will have entailed. As I said earlier, it's not what the political leaders agree in the presidential palace on the transfer of power that matters. It's how the Taliban's field commanders decide to do and how they will implement their rules, and that is something we'll have to look for.
Absolutely. Roh Yakobi, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for that.